Hi, everyone, and welcome to our LinkedIn Live. This is all about Beyond Bedside. Um, so for those of you that don't know me, my name is Sarah, and I am the founder of the RN Resume. I've been a nurse for 17 years now. I've held a ton of jobs, and I now help nurses with their careers and finding jobs that fulfill them. And I'm going to let Connor quickly introduce himself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Connor. I'm also a registered nurse. I'm based out of Ontario, Canada, and also work in the US. I'm also the founder of Nurse Recruit, which is a virtual tech platform that helps nurses find job opportunities throughout Canada, the US, and Australia, and beyond. So we've been working on that for the last year. Now we're celebrating our 1 year anniversary in about a couple days, so I'm excited about that too. And I'll take it back to Sarah.
Yeah, so the reason that we're holding this job fair is that I know there is a ton of interest from nurses these days about finding a non-traditional or non-bedside job, and I've certainly been there. And I've held jobs ranging from, working in research. I have been a prenatal educator. I've worked in clinical education. I've worked in nursing leadership, and for the past couple of years now, I've been CEO of the RN Resume. I'm also a podcaster, an author, you name it. I wear a lot of different hats. And so really what I want to do is help nurses find jobs that, really fulfill them and help them find work-life balance if that's what they're looking for. And a lot of nurses just don't know quite how to get there. So prior to creating this event, I actually created a poll about what you wanted to know the most about. And really it came down to four things. So it came down to how to find non-traditional job postings, how to write a resume, how to interview, basically just how to even know about these non-bedside opportunities. So we thought we would take this opportunity to tell you about these things. And as we're going along, if you're listening, if you have any questions at all, feel free to put them into the chat. Connor and I will do our best to answer them. So we really want this to be interactive, and maybe we could start while we're talking. If everyone could just put in the chat function where they're calling in from. So like Connor said, he's from Ontario, Canada. That's my neck of the woods as well. I do help nurses from all over Canada as well as the US and beyond. So would really love to know where everyone's from today. And just, okay, Nicole says she can't hear me. Is there anyone else that's having trouble hearing me? I can move my mic a little bit closer. Okay, so hopefully you guys are able to hear me now. Let me know if you're having any trouble hearing me. Okay, so we've got someone from Dallas. Okay,
Dallas, awesome. Oh, a couple
so
Texas, Ontario,
yeah, we've got Ontario,
Toronto.
Toronto. Ooh, another Texas, Ontario. Awesome. So keep those coming. Love to know where you're from, and maybe we could just start right out by the first question.
Yeah, okay, let's get started here. So I think one of the main things that we want to cover is where to find beyond bedside job terms to search
Mhm.
for. I think that's a really important aspect on job boards and etc. So, Sarah, what advice do you have for people?
I think that the main thing that you should do is start on LinkedIn. So if you're watching right now on LinkedIn, you already obviously have an account. There is a tab that's called jobs. So I would really just start there and start by creating job alerts. So not only job titles that you're interested in, but also organizations that you know hire nurses for non-traditional opportunities. So that's one thing I would start by doing. Once you do that, you can get daily or weekly emails or notifications. You can put up those settings on your own. And as you go along, LinkedIn kind of learns what you're looking for. And over time, it will start suggesting jobs to you. So that's probably the first thing I would suggest. You can certainly go on other job boards like Indeed. You can make your list of certain organizations you want to work on and look on their job boards and also sign up for job alerts that way. I would also recommend talking to nurses or people that have jobs that you're interested in and ask them, how did you find this job? And you might realize that a lot of it is word of mouth too. So really just putting yourself out there and letting people know that you're looking for a non non-traditional opportunity, whether or not they're in healthcare, you never know where your next lead might be coming from. So that's probably what I would suggest. And I hear from nurses all the time too, I don't really know what's out there. I've only ever worked in the hospital. I've only heard of hospital jobs. I don't even know where to start. So one of the things I did create was a report on non-traditional jobs. And this report has over 70 types of jobs, but certainly there are more out there. I'm still learning every day about new types of jobs. So, for example, I did a webinar the other day with someone who is an emergency communications nurse, which is like the coolest job I've never heard of. It's a lot like medical dispatch. And so, even I'm continuing to learn every day about new jobs. And so, just in really broad categories, there are jobs that are still direct patient care, but they may be in a clinic or a family health team. You might be working in a blood bank or a fertility clinic. And so there's no real set definition for what a non-traditional job is, but I've defined it as a job that doesn't involve shift work and most likely is not in a hospital. So if there are, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 type jobs, those are still, I would say, non-traditional because they're very different. The workflow is very different than what you would see on the unit. So there are those types of jobs. You could also look at a job in home and community or public health. So there are tons of jobs out there where the flexibility of the scheduling is there and you are still interacting daily with patients, just in a less acute setting. Or I guess, patients are getting sicker. So in the home and community sector, you may still find patients that are quite acute, but they are more stable than in a hospital setting. Um, then there are jobs that are related to women's health, which is my background. So you could work as a prenatal educator, you could be a prenatal or postpartum doula, lactation consultant. These are all jobs that are quite interesting as well. And if you really want to go a little bit more off the beaten path, you could even be an end of life doula. So someone that supports patients at the end of life. You could be a school nurse. You could be a camp nurse. I've worked as a camp nurse in the past, and I think it's a really fun opportunity. You could even be a theme park nurse. So all those people that go into
Oh,
theme
wow.
park injured as well, heat stroke, like they trip and fall, all kinds of things that you could do. Um, you could also I know there's a huge interest in work from home or remote jobs. So there are certainly jobs that are fully or partially remote. And some opportunities you might want to think about are case management. So this could be either remote or within the hospital. You could be a care coordinator, you could be a transplant coordinator. You could also look into education. So being a BLS or CPR instructor, a course instructor or lecturer. You could even be something like a medical device educator, or pharmaceutical educator. These are all still forms of education. And we all do education all the time as nurses, patient education. That is a form of education that you could take and translate into a different type of role. And you could work in research and quality improvement. So anything to do with research, quality improvement, quality assurance, these are jobs that can exist either within hospitals or outside of the hospital. And certainly the skills that you learn as a nurse can translate to this type of job as well. And for those of you that are calling in from the States, there are types of jobs like chart review, documentation review, something called HEDIS. So that's a seasonal type of work that you can do to review charts and that kind of thing. And then you could do something like what Connor and I are doing, which is going into entrepreneurship or being something
Yes.
a freelance consultant. So for me, I got into resume writing and career coaching. You could be a content creator. You could get into health coaching. You could be a health writer or a medical writer. You could be a legal nurse consultant. So I have done webinars on several of these topics as well, and they're definitely doable. You could be an NCLEX exam question writer. You could even be a subject matter expert for organizations that are not in healthcare. So there's lots of opportunities out there. And just to end, there's a big interest as well in informatics. So I've been hearing that a lot from nurses. So getting involved in things like coding data analyst, IT applications, or EMR go lives, being a medical claims reviewer. These are all things you can do, even telehealth or virtual care. So I'm just touching on the surface of all these different great things you can do, but certainly there are more out there that I'm sure I've missed. And if I have missed anything
Oh,
really
yes.
cool, you want to let me know about it, feel free to put it into the chat.
I think even doing this event that we're hosting upcoming, we've learned a lot of new opportunities out there that we didn't know about before starting this event, um, which
Hmm.
is really interesting as well.
And so, Connor, have I missed anything in terms of how you can find non-traditional job opportunities?
I think there's a lot of opportunities out there to kind of look through in terms of job boards, websites, but another really cool opportunity that we're hosting is a virtual job fair on May 15th. It's definitely going to be a great way to connect with some other nurses through a networking event. You can also attend webinars and meet some nurses that have started their own businesses and where they started to where they're at now. I think we have a nurse psychotherapist coming out. We've got a health writer as well. We've got also Darlene from QRS Education. She started her own business in CPR courses and also on-demand courses, and she's got a really interesting story as well. So I'm excited to hear about that more as too. And then we also have a lot of different employers coming out at this job fair event that are looking to hire nurses in various areas. In terms of community health nursing, we've got consulting, and we have opportunities in the US, opportunities in Canada. It'll be a really unique kind of event to see. And we have quite a few employers. I think we've got over 10 employers already attending, including Innomar Strategies and Clearport USA, which helps nurses from Canada to the US. We've got the Government of Yukon, Indigenous Services Canada. We have a couple smaller health boards and health centers as well from Quebec and Northern Quebec that are looking for nurses. So there's a lot of emphasis on the community nursing healthcare agencies. We also have the Canadian Healthcare Agency attending, and they do a lot of rural nursing postings. And they're a lot more flexible, and it offers you that opportunity to work for some time and then get a break in between as well, which I think is much needed in these days. Yeah. Sarah's
Mhm.
also agreeing to that too.
Yeah, I think it's
But yeah, I
really
think
cool
that would
because
be,
honestly, with summer coming up, it's a great opportunity to take that
oh yeah,
chance and go somewhere that you've never gone before. Like I've never been to the Yukon. I think it would be beautiful in the summer. Same with a lot of these other rural areas. I think you could really enjoy the outdoors if you take that opportunity and see what you can do with your
exactly.
license.
Yeah.
So we have
Even
some
in the
more
winter
comments.
time,
Yeah. Okay, we've
I think
got some
that's
more
like another,
comments
oh,
here.
you got
So we've
some?
got
Yeah.
someone from Ontario. We've got Fred from Saskatoon. Cheryl is from
Halifax.
Halifax. We've got someone else from Ontario. We do have a question here from Delina. So it's, what organizations can you suggest for non-conventional jobs to check out? So Delina, maybe you could let us know which country you're from, if you're from Canada or the US. If you are from Canada, I have put together a report of companies that hire nurses either fully or partially remote. So if you go to my website, thernresume.com, and you sign up for my email list, you will receive a list of these companies. If you are in the US, I can suggest two different job boards or websites for you. So number one would be Nurse Fern. That's FERN. So she has a job board that she posts jobs daily. The other one would be The Remote Nurse, and that is also a job board that you can use to seek out these type of opportunities. And yes, there's definitely a replay. We're recording this right now. So as soon as this event is over, it will continue to replay on the LinkedIn page. I'll also be uploading it to my YouTube channel and sending it out in my email newsletter. So you'll definitely get that. If there are any questions or comments that we don't get to live, we'll do our best to answer them afterwards as well. Okay, we've got someone from Florida. So Nicole asks, how can I access it? So I will put up the link to my YouTube channel. And also, if you're watching live on LinkedIn, you can come right back to this same exact page and it'll be here as well. So that's, yeah, just wanted to make sure I answered those questions. And then
Awesome.
just in terms of stepping outside the box, being a freelancer, becoming an entrepreneur. I think Connor and I want to share our own personal experiences because it's a lot of times it's hard for
Yes.
nurses to envision themselves doing this because they don't know anyone else who's done the same thing. So Connor, I'd love to hear your story and kind of how you got to where you are.
Yeah, for sure. I have a really unique story. I actually started going into entrepreneurship and business right out of nursing school. So I started the business in nursing school, had an idea that I kind of wanted to work with. We put on a virtual career fair for students at my school. It was really successful. We had quite a lot of employers come out. We had quite a few nursing students from my university and a couple other universities surrounding the area come out. And I think that was super beneficial in terms of validating some of what I thought was going to happen. And it also allowed me to expand this into a company. So once I graduated, I went and tried to write my NCLEX. I did it a little too fast, and I also walked out of the NCLEX after the first hour, and I did not pass on the first time. But at the same time, I had this whole business opportunity. I put together a business plan. I went through an organization called Futurepreneur, who's also going to be at this event as well with a booth set up. And I was able to get my business kind of started, get some funding going forward as well. And this was where I started out. I then continued on with the business. We hosted a couple job fairs. I finally went and wrote my NCLEX again and passed on the second try, which was awesome. But I think this is like a really unique way of starting a business. Most nurses will go with some experience and have that opportunity. But I also would like to say, like, I think it's important if there is that opportunity presented in front of you, take it and see what happens. You might lose a little bit of time, but at least you tried it and you have that knowledge now built up of what did work and what didn't work. And I think that's a really important kind of aspect to focus on. In addition to this, I'm also working soon to be working as a registered nurse in an ICU unit as well. So I think there is that flexibility too. It's taken me some time. It's been about a year now, so it takes a lot of time to kind of get everything set up and the way I like it. But I've learned so much through these different programs that I've gone through, including Futurepreneur, mentorship from other nurses and other business owners. I think that's like a really important aspect. But that's how I started out with Nurse Recruit. And we're expanding as well. We've kind of focused more on the technology side of things. And that's been a big pivot that we wanted to do. And that's what I originally wanted to start with was creating some job boards and everything else for nurses, but it just wasn't the right time and now it is. So super excited to
Mhm.
be sharing that too.
That's amazing. I think
What
that
about
a
you?
lot of
Yeah.
a lot of nurses think that it's like this straight line, like you graduate, you work in a
Oh,
hospital,
exactly. Yeah.
you start, you have to start in med surg because that's what everyone tells you, and then you keep working until you
Oh, no way.
retire.
Yeah.
And so it's
I
great
think
to
that,
hear that, you had a different journey and also sharing the
yes.
fact
Yeah.
that you didn't pass the first time. I think that's super empowering
Oh,
to a
yeah,
lot of other
exactly.
people out there.
There was a lot going on at the time, and like I kind of realized studying was really hard because I started a business. I had a 50, I think a 50 or 60 page business plan to create by a deadline as well. So there was a lot of in between, but I think what really was beneficial was having that knowledge from clinical experiences, and that really helped me go write the NCLEX again.
Mhm.
And sometimes it just doesn't come to you right away. And if you've got 10 things on your mind, it's okay. There's always another opportunity, there's another chance. That's a huge part of what I like to kind of tell other nursing students now.
And so before you started your business, what were your biggest fears about starting?
I think one of the biggest fears I actually had before starting my business was going into business itself. I was going down a very different path. My goal was to go into global health. I was involved in a couple organizations. We actually published a paper on like COVID-19 policies in the G7 nations. And that was kind of the route I was hoping to go down. I started a master's, but I soon realized that the business, we were gaining some traction in it, and it was something that I need to focus on more full time. So that is where I went. But there was a lot of fear getting over, like, I'm not going the traditional route of nursing. I'm not going into what I wanted to start with. But I found these opportunities and I really wanted to kind of take on these opportunities and see where they led me. And it's led me to this moment now today. So where I'm presenting in front of you and everyone else here. But I think that's a really kind of unique aspect of what happened with me. Not everyone's going to
Mhm.
have that same experience. I think everyone will have a different and unique experience too, but it's always okay to take on those unique opportunities.
Yeah, it's so interesting to hear your journey because I think mine was totally opposite to yours. So like many nurses,
Oh,
I
yeah.
worked for
Okay.
I worked for a number of years at the bedside, both in traditional and non-traditional opportunities. My thing was that I always got bored really easily. So I never could sit still. I would say more than 2 years. I always felt like, okay, I need to try
Oh,
something
wow.
new. I
Okay.
need to
Yeah.
try something new. And then I started a business actually about 10 years ago and it didn't succeed. And for me, that was a big learning experience. And what I've come to realize talking to a lot of entrepreneurs is that your first idea may not be the idea. But without that, I wouldn't have had that learning. So don't worry. Like,
Yes.
honestly, I think the main thing is just get started. Even if you're looking, just going back to non-traditional jobs, try that first one and see if you like it. Because at the end of the day, until you do it yourself, you won't know. I mean, it's great to talk to people, it's great to do your research, but you actually have to experience it to know whether or not this is
Yes.
something that you can do long term or not. And for me, I loved day shift, so I knew I wanted something that was a bit more regular. I knew that I liked trying new things. I knew that I was okay with technology. It was something that I wanted to learn. So it really just depends on your personality too, whether you think you're more introverted or extroverted. So if you're more introverted, for example, like myself, you could probably do well with a fully remote job and have little patient contact. But if you're one of those people that needs energy, you feed off of other people, then maybe there is a way that you can still do a little bit of both, or maybe you get your contact with people outside of work. And so this is just something to think about when you take a job like that. It is a big adjustment to working bedside shift work. And really just how I got started. And I do go over this a little bit in my book. So I have a book that just came out called The Wisdom of Nurses, and I talk a little bit about my journey. So really, I had experienced a lot of toxic behaviors, bullying. I was feeling burnt out. I really wanted to change, but I didn't know quite how to get there. So I started by doing, I did resumes on the side for some time. Around the same time, I had started a podcast because I was feeling really frustrated with things that had happened at work and I felt like no one was listening. And so that sort of just built over time. And I learned from experience, how to monetize. I learned about business terms. I'd always been interested in watching shows like Dragon's Den and Shark Tank. So I knew
Oh,
that
yeah.
it was always something I wanted to do. And being able to take a small risk and take chances and learn from the response I was getting from putting things out there, I think was also important. And learning how to use social media. So just because you see me on LinkedIn or Facebook and it seems like I know what I'm doing, I also started from zero and I made a lot of mistakes, but it was the only way for me to learn. So I think that's also really important to keep in mind.
I think it's a really important aspect too, that you can make mistakes along the way. They're learning curves and it allows you to improve yourself, improve what you're doing, and continue on what you're doing. It doesn't mean you have to stop what you're doing either. I've had a couple times where in my business when I started out, I didn't think things were going very well. We had one event, it was not successful at all, and I thought maybe this was the end of it. But it really was just a learning curve for me to say, this is what I need to improve on for the next event. This is what we need to do. We need to get more students out, and it definitely really was beneficial because we got to this point now where we're hosting more and more events. And I think at this upcoming event, we've got over 700, maybe almost 800 nurses already registered with the platform. And then we also have about 1,600, maybe 1,700 nurses now on LinkedIn interested. So it's an awesome kind of opportunity to showcase. We went from a very small event to a larger one too.
We have a question actually here. So, a caregiver wants to know how to, or like she's saying, many caregivers have transferable skills that would be valuable in non bedside nursing roles. Are there any specific programs or resources available to help caregivers transition into these careers? So I guess what I would say is I didn't have any special training going into my first non-bedside role. It was just because I worked at a hospital. There was an internal opportunity, and I took it to work in a women's clinic. So I didn't have any specific skills. And from there, I tried doing prenatal education again within the same organization. I left that organization to try being a research nurse. So all of this, I didn't have any formal education. So I would say the short answer is you don't have to do a specific program per se, but it really is really about marketing myself and finding those opportunities.
Yes.
And I would also suggest try doing some free or low cost courses if you want to upgrade, especially if you're looking to be more proficient in a certain software platforms. So for example, if you want to be more proficient in Microsoft Office, you could take a course that's either free or low cost. It doesn't necessarily have to be through an institution. It doesn't have to be a degree. It could even be through LinkedIn Learning. So that's something I've done in the past to brush up on certain skills. And that is something you can definitely put on your resume. So I think that's probably the route I would try first, unless your long-term plan is to, get another degree and really focus on something for a long time, then that might make more sense. Any comments, Connor, on your end?
I definitely agree with you, like everything there. I think upskilling with taking on some free courses or even some very low cost courses is a really important way. For me right now, like I'm learning more on the tech side and coding, and that's something that I've kind of been doing on my own time. I've reached out to some different organizations and looked at some courses. Some can be very costly, so I've kind of put those on the back burner for now and just kind of self-taught myself and seeing where it takes me in terms of that. Um, I think too, like there's a lot of skills that are very transitional between nurses or a caregiver role in general when you look at other job postings, and it's about highlighting those on your resume. I think you can kind of speak more on this, Sarah, about some resume tips and everything. But
Hmm. Yeah, I think that resumes is hard, right? Because you put so much time and energy into it. And what
yes,
research has shown is that someone might only look at it for 7 seconds. So if you time yourself and think about how much you can digest in 7 seconds, it's not a lot. So it has to be really impactful. You have to incorporate keywords from the job postings and put the most important information at the top of the resume. So that's what I would suggest. I think there's this tendency as nurses that we think, okay, we'll just keep adding more and more, and someone will see how great I am. But if it's not relevant to the role, so for example, if you're applying to a job that requires you to sit in front of the computer, it's not going to matter if you can draw blood. It won't matter if you're a great wound care expert. It won't matter if you can start an IV. Can you multitask? Can you use Microsoft Office? Do you know how to do video conferencing, like a Zoom meeting or whatever? These are things that are going to be important, or even listing off the EMR systems that you know how to use. I've talked to several nurses recently that had to go through a typing test to get the job that they wanted. So even assessing your typing skills, like how many words can you type per minute, and brushing up on those types of things will be really impactful. And thinking even beyond what you've learned as a nurse. So if you have developed a skill of any kind, even if it's speaking another language, and that's going to be relevant for the job, you should definitely list it. So some nurses have said to me, like, I know how to, I don't know, I know how to use Microsoft Word, but I didn't learn it at work. That's okay if you didn't learn it at work. You're not saying that you learned it at work. You're saying, as an individual, I have this skill, and this skill can help me in this particular job. So I just wanted to make sure, people understand that. And also, some nurses try to just make the font smaller and smaller and smaller, hoping that they get everything into 1 or 2 pages. So don't do that, because after a certain age, it becomes hard to read small font, and anything that's going to make it hard for the reader means that they are not going to read it. And so the same thing goes for fonts, fancy templates, and graphics and charts and all that. Another thing I see a lot is people putting down skills and rating themselves from 1 to 5. So you really don't need to do that, because it doesn't mean anything. You've decided you are a 5. Great. That means you have that
very
skill. But if you
subjective. Yeah,
rate right, if you rate yourself anything less than 5, that actually works against you, because why would you put a
yeah.
skill if you're rating yourself 3 out of 5? So those are just some really basic things I would suggest. And if you are really interested in um, moving away from bedside, I do have a remote resume template as well that can probably guide you in the right direction. Okay, so we've got another question from Jasmine. As someone who's interested in coding, do you have a list of sites that offers the courses? So what I would suggest actually, Jasmine, is if you go to a website like Udemy, so udemy.com, or Coursera, you can see I have personally gone on those courses, and I've seen a lot of courses
Yeah.
related to medical coding for very affordable prices. So you may want to check that out and see if that's something that would be accepted. I know there are certain organizations that want accredited courses, so you may want to check specifically if they would be accepted or not. But either way, I think it will give you a really basic knowledge base about medical coding to see if it's even something you would want to do or you could see yourself doing.
I think even on the coding, like the other side of coding too, for like if you want to create your own platform or something, I found quite a few free courses online. I think one of them was called Free Code Camp or something like that. That one's been really helpful. Also reaching out to any universities, colleges that you're close to or nearby, any of them really you can kind of go through. They do have programs. Some can be very expensive, some can be inexpensive. So it's just doing a little bit of research on that as well. I found those very beneficial. I don't think you need to go back and do a whole computer science degree. You can
Mhm.
learn it throughout time. And yeah, that's one thing too. Like they do offer those smaller courses. I think Harvard has some free courses on like introduction to coding as well. And then there's a
Mhm.
couple other websites as well. Like I think one's called Bright Network. It's in the UK. They do a lot of coding courses, mainly for students, but I think it is anyone can kind of attend those and learn as well. But those kind of boot camps, super helpful and a great way to kind of upskill as well.
Yeah, so I think what you're describing is micro learning. So micro learning really is the way of the
Yes,
future.
yeah.
Right? I think that's
Oh,
it.
it
It's
is. Yeah.
micro learning. It's very specific. It's not, and I have nothing against doing a degree. I have a master's in nursing. But what I'm
Yes.
saying is, um, before you make that commitment, just see if it's something you could even see yourself doing. Because I have talked to a number of
Exactly. Yeah.
people who have MBAs who don't know how to start a business. So there's this assumption that if I get a degree, it will give me all the answers I need to do this next thing. But you still have to put in the work. Like that's just the beginning. Um,
Yes.
so there's
And you
that
learn
part
as you
to
go.
consider. So actually, someone named Delina answered the previous question. So she says, "Hi, Jasmine. I have looked into coding for a time and never pursued it. You may want to consider checking out She Codes." So if you're listening, Jasmine, check out She Codes. I hope it's helpful to you. Amazing. I love it. See, this is community.
And let us know
Is
too if it is. We'd love to hear about
yeah.
that.
Okay. So we've got a question. Would you recommend sticking to the traditional Word format resumes instead of using templates? So a template can be a Word document. So what I would say is it needs to be really simple. And by that, I mean all the text needs to read from left to right. So we don't want anything like that column you see on the left. So I know that's a really popular template and it looks nice visually, but what I've heard from recruiters is that it interferes with something called the applicant tracking system or the computer screening software. So it actually makes it more difficult for these screening programs to pull out the information they need. So it's fine to have a template, whether you create your own or you purchase one or whatever, but make sure it's not heavily formatted so that like very minimal, like maybe just something at the very top for your name, and then headings, right? So we don't want charts or graphs or pictures. We don't even need a ton of color because I've personally never worked for an organization that has easy access to a color printer. And if anyone goes to print your resume out and it's in a lighter color, like an orange or yellow, it won't even show up. So just keep it really basic. If you want to use color, maybe like a navy blue or like a maroon, something that will show up on a black and white printer. Hopefully that answers your questions. Nicole wants to know any disability case manager jobs in Canada. There are. I would just recommend that you join my Facebook group. It's called Remote and Non-Traditional Nursing Jobs Canada. So we do post jobs as soon as we find them, whether it be daily or weekly. And there have been disability case manager jobs posted there. So just have a look at that and hopefully that will help you. And then another question, any information on occupational health and safety nursing? Yeah, I mean, I have had clients that have done occupational health nursing. It is a lot of paperwork. So you are still seeing people much like you would in a clinic or primary care. And it's essentially case management, meaning that you see the same certain number of people because you are basically the occupational health nurse for an entire site. And so it can get hectic. Obviously, it's not acute because if it was something serious, you'd be sending them to a hospital. But it is a lot of paperwork, I would say, patient education, managing return to work, and that kind of thing. Um, yeah, and it is Monday to Friday for the most part, so I think that's really beneficial. And it's funny that you brought up this job because I remember last year in my nursing school, I got my consolidation in labor and delivery, and someone got occupational health and was so upset and thought it was the end of the world. And now these days, people want occupational health, so it's just funny
Yeah.
how things have changed so much. And
I've
and
even seen some
yeah.
I've seen like travel nursing opportunities in occupational health as well once in a while. So that's a really unique one where you can go to northern communities and work
Mhm.
in those for occupational health nursing.
Yeah, it's really diverse. I think it's really just getting your foot in the
Yes.
door for that first job, and then once you have the experience, you can travel nurse because travel nursing is it's really good if you have a specialized skill or a specialized area that you can, hit the ground running. That's really important as a travel nurse, and also being able to, or not being afraid to ask questions because you are always going to be that new person. So just being able to ask questions, and connect with people and knowing that you're there because things are really bad and you're there to fill all the holes.
Yeah.
Okay. I feel a lot of opportunities with Epic and Cerner.
Yes.
Mhm.
There's quite a lot of
Yeah.
opportunities in terms of like electronic management systems for patient records in hospitals and health systems themselves, especially if they're implementing a new one. If they're switching from Epic to Cerner, Cerner to Epic or another system, or they're just starting out with one of those, they do hire on nurses to kind of train other nurses and go throughout hospitals or organizations and do that. And then
Mhm.
also, I think working for Epic and Cerner itself, they do have some positions. I don't know how many there are, but that's another opportunity as well.
Yeah, and I have done a webinar with a nurse. She's a registered practical nurse who got into nursing informatics, and what she did was she started out as an Epic super user, and then from there she assisted with a go live, and she just slowly moved up, and now she's a manager in nursing informatics. She works from home for the most part. She goes in maybe once a week or once every other week, so it is doable. And what she would say is, join committees, do that extra work, take any opportunity there is to learn more about EMR. And once people see that you have that drive and that initiative, then more opportunities will come to you. So I think just making sure you can work at an organization that has either Epic or Cerner to begin with will be really important. And then one more question from Nicole. She meant case manager
Oh,
courses. Oh, maybe I read that incorrectly. I don't know if
I
I
think I
have
might have
heard of
too.
any. I don't know if
There
I've
is
heard
some.
of any. Are there? Okay.
There is on, I know Coursera has a couple. I don't know. It depends on where you're applying though too, if they require some sort of certification to it or not. Some colleges, I know in Ontario here itself, there's a couple colleges that offer case management courses and certifications that you can take. But that's pretty much all I've ever seen. I haven't seen much outside of that, but there is some opportunities there. I don't know where you're located, Nicole, but I believe, let me just see here.
Yeah, I think it's just I personally haven't seen too many job postings that require certification, but certainly it wouldn't hurt to take a course. And
Yeah.
like I've been saying with the applicant tracking system, essentially what it does is it scans your resume and it scans the job posting and it assigns you a rank on how closely you match the job posting. So even if you had something related to case management under continuing education, that would give you a better chance at getting an interview than someone that didn't have it. So if you think about it that way, if like really the main goal of a resume, the only goal of a resume is to get an interview. It's not to get a job, it's to get an interview. So once you get to that next stage, you can really sell yourself then. And that's a whole other skill in itself is how to sell yourself in interviews. But getting to that stage is going to require using the terminology that they're looking for, right? And using it even more than once on a resume will help you rank higher too. So hopefully, Nicole, that answers your question. Connor has put a link up here.
Yeah.
What's the
That's
link,
for the
Connor?
Facebook group, the non-traditional Facebook group.
Oh, my group. Yes, yes. That's
Yes,
that's
yeah.
my group. So definitely join it if you are in Canada because I only post jobs in Canada. Like I mentioned, there are other resources out there for jobs in the US and beyond. So I try to keep it to Canada. Here's another question. How much experience do you recommend before picking up travel jobs? I have
Oh,
heard that
good
you should
question.
have 1 to 2 years. So 1 to 2 years solid experience, in any specialty really. But if you have experience in higher demand areas like ICU, Emerge, L&D, those types of things will be, important as well. I would say minimum 1 year. maybe two, depending on the agency that you want to work for.
I think that's also a really good question to ask some of the agencies during our job fair on May 15th. We do
Hmm.
have Canadian Healthcare Agency and Bayshore Northern Staffing. They both have different requirements, so maybe chatting with them and just kind of seeing what they say is a really good way to start as well. And
Hmm.
connecting with other travel nurses, that'll really help you understand too. Because I've seen very, like, as you said, Sarah, it could be 1 year, 2 years. I've even seen some 3 to 5 years experience, just depending on where you're going and what you're getting into.
Yeah, and just remember when you're a travel nurse, you're not going to get orientation like a normal new
Exactly.
hire would get. So they're expecting you to hit the ground running. And this is where it's important to do a self-assessment. Like if I were to go to another organization and I'm the only new person, would I be able to hit the ground running or do would I feel really anxious about that? Am I the kind of person that can just get in there and ask questions, silly questions maybe to other people, but it's essential to you to be able to do your work? Are you okay with moving around, every 6 weeks or so? Because you might pick up a contract that's 6 to 12 weeks, let's say. Once that's done, you can try to extend it, or you might have to go somewhere else. So, are you okay with that, right? Like, I think that's the kind of thing you want to keep in mind. Are you okay meeting a new group of faces every 2 to 3 months and doing that over and over again? And maybe you take on a contract and then you want a break and then you go back. So it does tend to pay more, I would say, but then you also might want some time off in between contracts too.
Exactly, yeah.
And
And I
Nicole
think
is
Nicole
from,
Winnipeg, okay.
yeah.
So the University of Manitoba, they do have a case management course. I think you can take it online. It's let me see here. They say it's 21 hours. There is a fee to it. It's $390 Canadian. But they do have a course. But as Sarah mentioned too, like you don't necessarily need a course. A lot of your skills are transferable, and depending on what kind of environment you worked in before, you can always utilize those skills too, and just kind of highlight them on your resume.
Yeah, and whenever you take these additional courses, you might want to see if they're covered by your current organization or
Yes.
even
Yep.
a professional organization. There are usually funds set aside for this type of thing. So if you feel like it's not affordable, there are ways to get reimbursed for that.
Yep.
Okay, Casey wants to know any insight into breaking into legal nurse consulting or doing medical chronologies for attorneys. So, I actually did a webinar not too long ago with a legal nurse consultant in the States and someone called an expert witness in Canada. And what one of them said is they want you to have a solid 8 to 10 years clinical experience. So that does sound like a lot. But if you have that, then you can be considered a subject matter expert in whatever clinical area you've been working in. And so being a legal nurse consultant means that you're going to be working as a freelancer. You're going to be trying to work with lawyers. To basically consult with them on certain cases. So you don't have to be a legal expert, but you need to be a clinical expert. So when they're bringing you a case of an injury, let's say, you would need to use your nursing experience to tell them, whether protocol was followed, was anyone doing anything incorrectly and that kind of thing. And then expert witnesses are witnesses that actually go to court. So if you feel like this is something you could do, if you could go to court, take the stand, and give your expertise on a particular area, then that is something you could do as well. So I will link those videos in the chat if you do want a bit more information on that. I know some of these legal nurse consultants, they do provide their own courses as well if you want to complete a more comprehensive training on what this looks like. Okay, so that's all the questions for now. I totally got sidetracked for what we were going to talk about next. But
Oh yeah.
if there's any ideas, Connor or anyone else have any comments, let us know, and we'll be happy to continue answering a few more questions.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. I think one of the biggest questions that most people I've seen have is getting started in a non-traditional role. Where do you even start looking? There's so many different opportunities out there, as we kind of covered now. But how do you do your research? What should you be looking for of interest wise and stuff like that? Do you have any kind of insight on that, Sarah?
Yeah, I think it's really good to just reflect on your working career so far and really think about what it is that you like doing and what it is that you don't like doing. So it sounds really overly simple, but doing more of what you love and less of what you don't is what you should be looking for in your next job, and really taking inventory of what your priorities are at this stage in your life. There are no wrong answers. So are you looking for more pay? Are you looking for an increased opportunities for advancement? Do you want something that's a bit more regular? Are you looking for work-life balance? Do you want to work in a positive work environment? Do you just want to work somewhere that's close to home? Do you want to get home for dinner in time? These are all valid goals to have in your next job. Or is there something that you could do at your current job that would give you more joy? Like maybe you want to learn a new skill or join a committee or become a charge nurse. So it's not always about finding the next best thing, but it's about how do you feel fulfilled at work and avoid being burnt out? Or if you are burnt out, how can you give yourself that time to kind of heal from it and be a more effective employee and be just a better person to your family and your friends? So one of the things that I noticed is when I was really burnt out several years ago, I was snapping at everybody that I lived with, and I don't think that was fair to them, and it wasn't fair to me, and
Yeah.
I really needed a change, but I didn't. It's not that I didn't know how to get there, I was afraid. I was afraid of what this would look like, and in full transparency, I did take a pay cut to take my first job outside of the hospital setting, but it was worth it to me because it gave me so much more back and it allowed me the time and space to start my businesses. And so I don't regret it. And so that's why I'm saying there is no right or wrong answer, but you need to know what it is that you want. I used to apply for anything and everything I might be remotely qualified for, hoping that I got something. But what I suggest to people now is narrow it down to 2 or 3 choices of types of jobs you want, and that can give you a bit more strategy even when it comes to looking for jobs, when it comes to tailoring your resume. It just keeps you from spinning so much. We've got one more question. Any specific aptitude tests or online job coach opportunities that you recommend? um I don't know about aptitude tests. I think it's more of a self-assessment that would be good. One of the things I have thought
Yeah.
about doing, which I haven't gotten around to, and maybe you can help me with this, Connor, is I wanted
Oh
to
yeah.
create actually I wanted to create a quiz. So you take this quiz and it'll give you suggestions on what type of nursing job would be right for you. And I was
Oh, I love
thinking
that.
about
Yeah.
doing that for like a non-traditional type job. So that's kind of what I was thinking. I don't know if there's an aptitude test at this point. I think it's really about self reflection, talking to people that know you and
Yes.
asking them, give me some feedback on me. What am I really great at? And asking your coworkers too for some honest feedback. What am I great at? What is it? Is there anything that I could do better at? And just kind of take all that feedback and see where that
Exactly.
lies with you.
I think too, I find a lot of times self-reflection, even just sitting down with a pad of paper and a pen and writing down what I've done and stuff like that is really helpful as well. It could even be something that you're working in your current clinical environment and you see an innovation that could be possible. Start following that and see if it's actually something you can gain traction on or validate and build a product
Hmm.
out of it or even create a service out of it. There's a
Hmm.
lot of different business routes that you can go through, especially in Canada and the US. I know that there's quite a few organizations that do offer help to get you started, Futurepreneur being one of those. And I think that's a really good way to kind of look at things as well. It's not always necessarily you having to go to the next job. It could be an innovation that you're doing part time, and that's something too.
Yeah, and I say to nurses that are interested in starting a business, just start slowly. So I wouldn't recommend anyone to quit their full-time job to start a business because it
Yes,
will
yeah,
take time, and it can sometimes be slower than you think. It's great if it's not, but it could be slower than you think. So you don't want to give up that income while you're starting to build something on the side. Also, if anyone is interested in starting online business, that's what Connor and I specialize in, is online business, technology, social media, marketing. All these things apply to entrepreneurship, but also marketing yourself for a job. And so what I hear from a lot of
exactly.
nurses is, I've never really had to interview. I've never really had to apply because it's always been within my organization. And when I did an interview is kind of for the sake of doing it. And I knew I was going to get the job. If you're looking to try something non-bedside, it is a little bit more competitive. And so marketing yourself will be more important than it has been in the past. And I guess, like, as nurses, as women, especially we feel uncomfortable because we think we're bragging, but it's not bragging. It's showcasing your accomplishments so that people know you're the best candidate for the job. If they don't know you and they're asking you, then you don't need permission, right? Like they're literally asking you, tell me why you're the best person for the job. And it's not bragging if that's what the situation calls for. So being more comfortable with listing off your accomplishments and the great things that you've done, it's not the time to be humble and hope that people can see your hard work, because they can't. And with the pace that everything's moving at, you just have to kind of have your elevator pitch and be really confident in what you're saying.
Yes, and update that elevator pitch too. Make sure it's specific to certain jobs and everything as well. I think that's a really important part to kind of focus on.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna put it out there. If there are any other questions, you are welcome to keep typing them into the chat. Um, So I guess in terms of what Connor and I have been talking about, we do have a bedside job fair coming up. It's called, sorry, a non-bedside job fair. It's called Beyond Bedside Virtual Nursing Job Fair, and it's happening on May 15th at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, and it's going to go until about 4 or 5. And so I just wanted to let everyone know you can sign up anytime, but if you sign up earlier, that's better, obviously, because you will be entered in for a draw to win a set of free scrubs if you live in Canada or the US. So the way that you can find it is several different ways. You can Google Beyond Bedside Virtual Job Fair. You can also go to nurserecruit.ca /Beyond Bedside 24. I think Connor is going to be putting that in the chat right now, so you can look for it in the chat. You
Yes,
can
I am.
also sign up. I'm telling you all the different ways in case you miss it. So you can also sign up for my newsletter, which is at thernresume.com. In my newsletter going out this Saturday, I will be including the link to sign up for this job fair. You can also private message Connor or myself, and we will get you that link. And as Connor said, we do have a number of employers coming out. We also have a number of exciting speakers. So for anyone in Canada, Dr. Lee Chapman is confirmed to come. She is the Chief Nursing Officer of Canada. We also have someone coming named Janelle, who is a health writer. We've got Sheena coming, who's a nurse psychotherapist. We will be doing a panel on non-traditional jobs as well as entrepreneurship. We've got someone named Sadeki coming, who is personal finance expert. I might be missing. Oh, we've got Laura Nguyen, who is a burnout expert, and her whole thing is about taking career breaks and what that looks like. So super exciting things to come, and I'm sure we'll
Yes.
get more sponsors before the event because there's still 2 weeks to go. We also have a number of freebies, so discount codes for resume and cover letter templates. We've got scrubs to give away. What else have we got?
We've got
I
on-demand
think,
courses from Darlene from QRS
yes.
Education, so you can learn about I think she's got a couple different courses you can take from. So that'll be
Yep.
really
Also,
interesting there too.
we're chance to win an Amazon gift card. So everyone loves Amazon.
Yes, yep.
We've got discount codes for Nurse IQ, for QRS Education, for Mark's Work Warehouse, and there's more to come. So just a small preview of what's to come, and hopefully this will be a really exciting event for you guys. We really hope that we can help you find the job that you want, and that at the very
Yep.
end there will be an open Q&A in Zoom breakout rooms, so you definitely can have that face-to-face time with all of the sponsors at the event.
Exactly. And I think too it's really
Okay.
important to highlight you don't need to come here just to look for a job. It's a great way to kind of network. You can connect with some different nurses that have different opportunities available, and learn about these opportunities. There's a lot of webinars. We've got a jam-packed schedule. I think me and Sarah have been working on the schedule for quite a while now, and it's pretty jam-packed. So there's a lot of different webinars you can join. Everything is online for that. Oh, I think I just answered that question too. So I just saw that pop up. It is a virtual event, so you are able to register and attend. You don't need to upload a resume if you're not looking for a job. You can always just attend some of the webinars. We'll send you a participant guide as well after the event and before the event. It'll be a PDF with some information about the schedule of the day, some of the job opportunities, plus some of the extra discounts that Sarah was just talking about as well. So It's a great way to
Yeah,
kind of
and to
come
my
out and
knowledge, this is literally the first non-bedside nursing
yes,
job
yeah.
fair there has ever been, ever. So, it's open to everyone in the US and Canada. That's where, the employers and the sponsors would be from, and so this is really exciting because every job fair I've ever heard of has not been focused on beyond bedside. There's always been something else in there. So we hope everyone can attend and that you, learn something from it, and even if you register and you can't attend, you'll still be able to access all the recordings. So don't worry if the time doesn't work out,
Yes,
if you get called in last minute for a shift, if you register, you will get everything that you would have gotten live. So just keep that in mind as well. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening, and thank you for tuning in.
thank you so much, everyone.